Welcome to Chapter 2. You've all survived Chapter 1. Hopefully, you're not thinking of dropping the course just yet. So, as we get into Chapter 2, well, let me talk about Chapter 1 first. Chapter 1 was more of a, hey, let's get everything set up. Let's, kind of ease into this programming thing in Java. Chapter 2, it's still relatively straightforward and easy, but now we're moving into the realm of object-oriented programming. So I'm going to assume that you have gone onto Moodle and viewed the OOP PowerPoint presentation. There's a lot of good information in there. So if you haven't looked through it, at least look through it before watching this video. But in this video, what we're going to do is combine kind of both topics. So we're going to go through an OOP example and then also code it up. So it should hopefully help it stick and make sense to you. So over here on the right is a graphical depiction of what we're going to code over here on the left. So I'm going to create a public class called bank account. And over here, this is what it looks like. If I visualize a bank account, we're going to use the bank account class. So this represents my class up here, and it also represents this. And from this class, eventually we're going to create two bank account objects. So there's going to be one over here, and then there's going to be another over here. And what distinguishes one bank account from another? Well, typically it's, the name of the person, the address, the balance. We're keeping it very basic and very simple. These could be a checking account, a savings account, whatever. We're just keeping it generic. So now that we have a general understanding of what we're going to do here, let's go ahead and start coding up this public class bank account. So like I said, we're using this top portion here as our guide. So we're going to need something with a name, an address, and a balance. Let's go ahead and declare the first member variable, and we'll call that private string name. Address is also going to be a string, so we'll just repeat here, and I'll call it string address. And the last one is going to be balance. So some of us might be extremely wealthy, so we'll want to make this a larger data type. So we'll call it private double balance. So now we see these match up with what we have inside of our bank account class over here. So now we need to figure out, okay, we have our variables. Now what do we do in the rest of the class? Well, the first thing that we do, and if you remember from our Greenfoot video from chapter 1, is there's something called a constructor. The constructor is what works behind the scenes to create our specific objects from this bank account class. And if you remember from Greenfoot, the format is simply, we have a public identifier, we have the name of the class itself, followed by parentheses. And for this example, we're actually going to leave it blank. So that is all we have to do for the default constructor. So if you remember, we made these private because we're following the encapsulation principles. So we don't want these to be accessible from outside of the class. And when we say accessible, I mean directly accessible. So I couldn't, from outside of this class, manipulate this balance. We do want to give access, though, but we want to control that access. A way we do this is using getters and setters. So getters are just like they sound. They're public methods within the class that we're able to retrieve information safely from our bank account objects. So let's say, for instance, I wanted to get the name of a certain bank account. I can use a getter to do that. So we have getters here, and then we also have something called setters, which is exactly what they sound like. Setters are ways we can manipulate these private member variables. Another name for these, sometimes you'll hear them called accessors, and for setters, you'll sometimes hear them called mutators. Okay, so how do we create these things? Well, I'm going to show you a shortcut. So because I've already declared my member variables up here, what I can do inside of Eclipse is I'll right click, I'll go down to source, and from source you see all these different things down here. And what I'm interested in is generating getters and setters. So I'm going to go ahead and select this. And it asks me, to select the getters and setters to create. Well, I want all of them, so I'm just going to hit select all. You could also just manually select each if you had a lot of different ones. It asks you where you want to insert them. So I want it inserted after the constructor. That's good. And then it asks you how you want to sort it. So do you want all of the getters first and then setters, or do you want the fields in pairs? I don't really care what you do. I think I'm used to seeing getters followed by setters, but it's up to you. I also want these to be public because, again, these are going to be our public access to those private member variables. Method comments, we're not going to select that for now. And that is all I have to do. So let's see what happens. Go ahead and generate, and I'm going to get rid of this. Check this out. So Eclipse just did all of this work for me. It put the getters up here, followed by the setters down here. And I usually put comments in just to kind of distinguish the sections here, just so it's easier for me to see where the getters and setters are. So notice about the getters, they don't have to, but they follow this nomenclature of get and then the variable name. There's no parameters for a getter because all you're doing is you're calling this method and you're just wanting to retrieve something. So you're not actually passing anything in here, and you're returning the name. So the name matches up with the return data type of string, the typical form of a getter. And for the setter, notice the return type is a void because we're not returning anything, we're just setting something. And here we're passing in the string name. So from our other file that we're calling this method from, we're going to pass in the name being set to this dot name. So what the heck is this dot name? That's confusing. We'll get into this more as we go further in the course, but this refers to the current object being modified. So if you're trying to set the name of your bank account object, let's say you called bank account object 1, then this would represent object 1, and it's setting the name of object 1 here. So we're not going to get too in depth into this right now, but as we move forward, we'll start talking more about what this all means. But for now, this is kind of a general overview and intro to this stuff. There is one other thing that we can add. There's a method called toString, and I can automatically generate that too. So let me go ahead and do that. I'll right click. I'll say source. I'll say generate toString. It asks me what fields to include in the toString method. I am simply going to leave these selected. Don't worry about these. It asks me where I want to insert this after the set balance, which is here, which is what I want. Comments I'm not going to worry about for now. And it goes into a whole bunch of formats. Just knowing this exists is really what I want you to know. So I'll go ahead and hit generate. So what this is going to allow me to do is in my main program, when I call the object and I put the object in a print, this will automatically print this out for me. So I don't have to worry about any crazy formatting or anything. It's already here for me. And again, like I said, we'll get into it more in depth later, but for now, just know it exists and know that you can automatically generate. Okay, so that looks to be it for our class bank account, which again, it just represents this up top here. Okay, we have not done any of this yet. So now we're going to move into doing that. I'm going to go ahead and create a new Java class. And what I'm going to call this, I'm just going to call this bank account runner. This is going to be my program that actually uses my bank account class, and it's just running the program. I do want it to create public static void main for me, so I'm going to select this, and I'm going to select finish as well. So now we've got this bank account runner class. Now we have our bank account runner class, and this is where our main method is. So how do we use our bank account class that we created over here? How do we use it in this bank account runner? Okay, to get started, I need to create from my bank account class, which again is this, I need to create an object. And how I create that object is I start writing bank account. That is going to be my data type. I'm going to call it my account. So this is the object name, my account. I'm going to set it equal to new, and then I'm going to use the constructor from my bank account class. Now I have a bank account called my account. So how my account is represented over here, and now this is going to be our object. So this is the my account, which is of type bank account, which is from this class bank account. Okay? So now we want to populate it with some stuff. So how do we populate? Well, remember those getters and setters. So let's use some setters. The way we do this is we say my account, since that's the object name. And now we have this dot operator. And you see I get this whole list of stuff. Get balance, got what other stuff is familiar? Set address, set balance, set name. All of these things that we created when we were building our class. And what I want to do is I want to set this stuff. So I'm going to go set address, and I'm going to say 123 road. So then my next one, my account dot, and I want to set the balance. So for the balance here, I'll put let's put 200. That'll represent $200. And then finally, gonna set, what are we missing? Address, balance, and now name. I'm gonna put my name in here. Excellent, I'm gonna go ahead and save that. To make it more aligned with what we're seeing over on the right side, I'm gonna paste this up top. Okay, so now I think we're in good shape. So we've got the name here, which is gonna be Kevin. The address is 123 road. It almost fit. And the balance is going to be 200. So you see for this bank account of my account, the name is Kevin, the address is 123 road, and the balance is 200. So that has set our first object. Now we've got to set a second object because I just want to show you that we can create multiple objects from a single bank account class. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to copy this whole entire thing. Copy, paste it down here. I'm going to correct my spacing. You'll notice I got an error because this is the same variable as up here, so I can't declare this twice. But what I'll name this new object is I'll say your account. And what I'm going to do is copy and paste it here. And now this is the your account object. So this is using the same bank account class, but now we're going to set it to some different stuff. So for this name, I'll put Susan. Susan lives at 321 Lane. So we'll just distinguish this a little bit. And Susan has a lot more money than me. So she has $800. Now we've got a bank account over here, a new object. This is called your account. Correct this spacing over here. We said the name was Susan. The address is 321 Lane. And the balance is going to be $800. Let me get rid of that. One class, but from that class, we've created two distinct and separate bank account objects. Let's go ahead. We're not going to use the getters in this lesson, but what we'll do is we'll try to use that toString method and see how it works. So you remember from bankaccount.java, we created all of these things up here, and then we added this toString. In order to use the toString, you just have to put the object within a printout statement. You don't actually explicitly call the toString method itself, but let me show you what I'm talking about. So to print things out, we're used to seeing something like this, my account, and I'll copy and paste this to save myself a little bit of time. This will be your account. I'm going to do another paste. And all I'm going to put in here is the object name, my account. And very similar thing down here. All I'm going to put is the object name, your account. So what do you think is going to happen when we run this? Let's give it a shot, see what we get. Okay, you see we have my account, and it's of type bank account. It's got name equals Kevin, address equals 123 Road, balance equals 200, and your account is also a bank account, Susan, 321 Lane, and 800. So if we go back to this toString, you see this output matches what we have. So the toString is very, very nice to use because you can just print out your entire object and see the contents of each object. Hopefully that's helped you narrow some confusion down or clear up some confusion, because I know at first it's kind of confusing because we're talking about classes and then we're creating these things called objects from them. One of the key things to remember is there's one bank account class. So this thing we created, there's only one of these, but from this we can create multiple objects. And over here, we created multiple bank account objects. Now the power in this is that I really didn't have to do a whole lot for multiple bank accounts. I just used this same blueprint and I'm able to create all these different things. We're starting to see the power of object-oriented programming. We're just scratching the surface at this point. I hope the PowerPoint presentation followed by this example helps to solidify the concepts. And the next video I will be posting will be about homework number 2.